In this, your first lesson in making a real project, you will learn a little bit about a lot. We will be learning a bit about colour theory and how to mix and match colours and pattern in your work that will achieve a balanced composition. I will also delve into the world of irons, a crucial tool in your journey, to explain the different types and when to use them. It seems like a no-brainer, but in the world of sewing, an iron is not just an iron. Then finally, I will teach you a trick to sew squares which will make your project so much easier, as well as showing you how to do buttonholes without losing your cool. So let's get started. So I've decided to go with the monochromatic theme for my cushion cover. I've got these lovely floral fabrics left over from a quilt that I made several years ago. I've got 16 fabrics here, so I've got one for every square that I need, but you don't have to do that. You can double up if you want to. So I'm gonna cut these out, just one square of each, and then I'll show you how I set up a composition that's nice and balanced. So I've cut out my squares and I've just laid the interfacing that we're going to use to adhere the patchwork to on the table. So I've laid out all the squares. I'm just going to cut the interfacing around the shape so we get the right size piece. So just cutting out the interfacing to the size of the squares. And it does look quite big right now, but once we take into account the seam allowance, it will be a lot smaller. So just roughly cutting out the interfacing around the edge so that we've got a decent piece to work with. So here are my squares. I'm going to play around with this composition. So basically the principles of composition are about balance and where your eye gets drawn. So obviously these lighter colours here, we want to separate those from the darker patterns so that it's nice and balanced. And I always like to put the darker patterns in the corners because it sort of grounds the piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to move these dark pieces onto the ends. That's looking better already. So this one stands out quite a bit, but then so does this one, and this one even. But these two here are quite even, so I'm just wondering if I can maybe bring one of these down and put that one up there. That seems more balanced already. So we've got sort of mid-tones in these blue ones here, spread out amongst the lighter tones, with the darker tones in the corners for balance. I'm quite liking this arrangement. I think this works well. And the trick is not to belabor it too much as well. You don't want to agonize over it. You just want to make things look nice and balanced and not too heavy on one side or the other side. So I'm happy with this. So I'm going to take it to the ironing board and iron it onto the interfacing. This is a technique that I use to make sure that the pieces don't move around too much and you get a nice crisp edge to your patchwork where the different fabrics meet. You'll see what I mean when we get to start sewing. So I'm just going to iron these pieces neatly to the interfacing, making sure to line them up as accurately as possible. This is so that when you're sewing the pieces together, you don't get any mismatched lines when you're sewing your pieces, and you get a nice even line all the way down your piece. It's a great technique to use. I'm just going to cut off this edge here so that I don't get too much stickiness on the bottom of my beautiful new Oliso iron. The one that I'm using here is the Oliso Smart Iron. So just pressing down neatly at first, or stick those pieces to the interfacing. And then I'm going to pull it up a little bit. Oh no, you know what I've done? I put the interfacing face side down so it's sticking onto the thing. Oh no. See, this is where you make mistakes when you rush. And I'm not perfect either. I make mistakes like this, and this is an obvious mistake to have made, to put the interfacing wrong side down. I guess I'm just going to have to fix that up. So let's turn the interfacing the right side round and try again. Fortunately, I have a non-stick ironing board, so there hasn't been too much of a problem. So this time the sticky side is facing up instead of facing down. I can't believe I made that mistake. Just goes to show what you do when you're not paying full attention to what you're doing. And yep, people like me make mistakes too. Okay, trying again. This time, sticky side up between the fabric and the interfacing. There we go. Beautiful. I'm just sort of padding along at first, so you don't pull the fabric off the interfacing. Sometimes that happens if it gets unstuck. So now we have a piece of interfacing with my 16 squares neatly sandwiched on with the glue. And now we're ready to sew at the sewing machine. So now we have to sew the pieces together. You'll notice that when you fold it in on itself, it folds really neatly along that line where we've joined them. When we stitch the seam, it'll come out really nice and neat with all the lines of the squares meeting up absolutely perfectly with this technique, with the interfacing. I learnt this a little while ago and I haven't looked back. It's the best way to sew small pieces of patchwork. So let's get started. Then what we do is, now that that's sewn, we get the next middle part in the fabric, and we've sewn there, and now we're going to sew this one, and you just keep going like that until all your seams are done. So now we have a piece that has all the seams in one direction sewn. So we're going to press that now, press all to one side, and then we're going to do the other 3 seams. So now we're going to sew all the seams in the other direction. Oops, now this happens from time to time. The bobbin thread is a little bit twisted, so just taking it out and re-threading that through the right way. Pulling the bobbin thread up and replacing the cover. You'll find that you do this many, many times in the middle of sewing. And it's not a mistake, it's just one of those things that happens when you sew. So now we've sewn all of the seams on our patchwork piece. And I'm just going to take it to the ironing board to do a final iron before we measure out the backing. So I'm going to use this stripy piece for the back. I think that's a nice contrast to the the busy florals. So just going to iron this. Okay, so I'm going to just trim off the selvage. And because this is a nice line, I can cut directly on that line and it'll be nice and straight. So what we're going to do here is to cut 2 halves for the backing piece for the cushion. So I'm just going to place that there, and we'll take the edge that we just cut and place it over the top. Actually, no, my mistake. This goes on the top here. And just lining it up. And from the middle piece here, in order to make room for the buttonholes, we need to take this middle line here and measure the backing 5 inches additional to where that line is. And that way our buttonholes will be nice and even. So basically we need to trim along this line here. For that piece. So just trimming along that line. And you probably noticed also that it needs trim in the other direction. So just trim, and there's one piece ready. And then because we've already got the template and that's it, and it's exactly the same on both sides, we don't need to measure it out again. We can just copy what we have for the other one. So, put it on top of the fabric. This is what makes working with squares just so easy, because you don't have any messy patterns and markings and all that sort of thing to worry about. Okay, now we need to iron our facings. So we take 2 inches, sorry, get it right side up, 2 inches that way. So that's roughly 2 inches on that line there. So we iron our facings flat, and then another 2 inches that way. So there's one facing on one of the backing pieces, and you just do the same with the other side. Now we need to move on to the buttonholes. So to mark where I want my buttonholes, I'm just going to measure. I'm going to put 2 buttons in this, so it's 16 inches. So that divided by 3 is, oh, what's that? My maths is shocking. 16 divided by 3 or 16 divided by is about 5 1/4 inches. And the next one is another 5 1/4 inches down. So we're just going to mark our buttonholes. So there's the buttonhole coming in, the line. But I think we'll do the buttonholes going up top to bottom. So if you just feel for where the thing is, and then I'm going to mark a buttonhole there. About 1.5 inches, because my buttons are about that size. And there we have 2 buttonholes marked in. So it's off to the machine to do the buttonholes. This is going to be fun. Now I'm going to show you how to do buttonholing on a manual machine. So you turn your selector to step number 1 of the buttonholing process. There are 4 steps, so you're on step number 1. And your stitch length should be on the closer side to 0, just to give it that sort of neat finish when you cut through the fabric after you make your buttonhole. So in the first step, you stitch for as long as you want your buttonhole to be. And then you stop when you've reached your desired length and you change it to steps 2 and 4 on the selector. This will give you a nice reinforcing stitch at the end. You only want to stitch about 3 or 4 stitches as reinforcing. You don't want to overdo it because the feed dogs at the bottom will get stuck on the stitch and you won't be able to do your stitch going forward to the back. So just do that reinforcing stitch 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 times. That's perfect. Now switch your selector to step number 3 and this will give you your stitch going back from front to back alongside the stitching you did in step number 1. And you stop when you reach your stitching and you turn to step number 2 and 4 again, and that'll give you the reinforcing on the other side. 2 or 3 stitches and then we're done. And you have a reasonably neat buttonhole. Now to do the buttonholes, we need to take off the standard foot and put on the buttonhole foot. This machine does automatic buttonholing, which is very useful. I'm just trying to get that. Oops. There we go. Now what you do is you get your button. I've got some black buttons here. What you do is you place the button into the, better put that face down. You place the button into the buttonholing foot and you bring down this lever to sit behind the bracket there. This is how it works on my machine. It's not the same on everybody's machine, so refer to your instructions, but this is basically how it's done. And then you line the red line up on your foot with the line of your buttonhole. I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and that's the center there. Put the needle down, turn on the buttonhole stitch, which I'm going to do number 40 on my machine, 38 on my machine. Oh my God, something has gone very wrong. I think it's oh, that doesn't look right at all. I'm gonna have to unpick that whole buttonhole. This happens, guys, this happens. I think it's my bobbin thread. I think my bobbin thread is at the end and it's coming a bit loose and it's not doing particularly well with the buttonholing stitch, but okay, let's try again. Buttonhole marking in the middle there. Hold my thread up. It's a bit long, this thread. I'm going to cut it actually. Holding my thread up and let's go. Wow, that looks perfect. Much better. Just trim off the excess threads and I'll do the other one. So what I did was to replace the bobbin thread. The bobbin thread was running out, and sometimes when it gets to the end it becomes very loose, and so the tension just goes all over the place, and you just need to fill up your bobbin right to the brim again and insert it into the bobbin case and start your sewing again. And 2 perfect buttonholes. And now I'm going to show you a trick when you trim the inside of the buttonhole to make the hole. I have a trick that you use with a pin. Stick a pin through the top there and then cut towards the pin, and it stops you from cutting your stitches. Just a little hack. And just trim, make the buttonhole with your quick unpick. It just trims the fabric. Just push the fabric to the buttonhole. And voila, we have 2 perfect buttonholes, and that red dye will come off with the iron. So now let's put it all together. So I've got my 2 backing pieces here, one with buttonholes, one without, and I've got my patch piece face up. So I'm going to put the buttonholed piece face down with the buttonholes in the middle, face down. So this is the wrong side of the buttonhole, so the face goes down on top of the patch piece, and I just place that neatly there, and then that's ready to go. And then this piece, which will be the piece with the buttons on it, goes directly over the top, lining up the 2 facing pieces. Actually, it's a little bit too short, so we might just pull it back a bit, but that's okay because that's just the bit that holds our buttons. So there we go, it's all nice and flat, and we just pin, and then we can take it to the sewing machine to put together. And now this is the easy part. We're just going to stitch the backing pieces to the front of our patch piece, leaving about 5 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And last pin, and then we're back to the start. Sew over a bit, snip your threads, and then we just need to turn it out, but before we do so, we clip the corners off so you don't get a bulk of fabric when you turn the cushion out to the right side. So here's our piece. We just go to turn that out, making sure that the corners are nice and crisp with your handy chopstick. Just turning out those corners nicely, and then give it a good press. And as you will see, this red marking will come off with the iron. Isn't that magic? Look at that. Never ceases to amaze me. So we're just ironing the cushion flat, and then there's our product. But one more step, and that is to sew on the buttons. So get this nicely aligned, and in the middle of the buttonhole, just make a mark on the other side through the cut, and you've got 2 red dots there to put your buttons on. So I'm just going to hand stitch those, and then we're finished. So I promised you I would tell you about the irons that I use for my work. The first one that I want to talk about is the Oliso. This is the heaven of irons. It has a great steam function. It's got your adjustable heat settings, but the best thing about the Oliso is that it has an automatic lifting mechanism, so that when you leave your iron face down, it immediately knows that your hand has disappeared from the iron and it bumps up. As soon as you grab the iron, it goes back down again. So it's a really great tool for sewing. And this is my mini iron. This is a great tool that's inexpensive to use on smaller projects, getting into those finer details, but it doesn't have any steam. So it's good for using on interfacing and other projects. So there you have it. There are the 2 tools that I use the most when I'm ironing at my board.